You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. I'm Laura Wallace, also known as the Laura Aura, lover of all things inspirational, owner of Works Graphic Design, and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. I'm here to help you get out of your head and back into action as a passionate business rock star. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday as we fuel your Gutsy. Welcome back to the Gutsy Podcast. This week we are talking about all things vulnerability related. Yep, these are the moments that we feel the most exposed to the world, but just like all the other things we talk about here, there is power in knowledge. And I want to teach you how vulnerability actually makes you more human, and in the long run, earns you way more respect than you would ever believe. I would bet if I asked you right now to share something with me that makes you feel really uncomfortable. Maybe it's a challenge that you're facing in your business or a change of heart in something that you're investing a lot of time in. Maybe there's a financial slip up right now or a relationship issue. I'd bet that your first feeling would be, oh my gosh, what is she going to think of me? Or how is this going to make an impact on my business? Typically, the first reaction is to shut down, turn around, and get out of the situation. I certainly have spent my fair share of days tucked away in my bed or in my house in hopes that no one would find me. And then I get lost on Pinterest and I lose half a day and it just snowballs out of control. And before I know it, I'm way more worried about something than I really should be. It's taken me quite some time to realize that there is actually a lot of power in vulnerability. And how I found this out was by just starting to share some of my thoughts and emotions, fears, and successes with people that I really trusted. For instance, when we started the Green Couch Project 5 years ago, and if you're not familiar with the Green Couch Project, basically we interview entrepreneurs on a chartreuse couch that is sitting in my office right now, and we talk about a lot of vulnerable moments through entrepreneurship. This is honestly where the tagline Spill Your Gutsy was born. Because after interviewing hundreds of entrepreneurs, we found that there's a ton of gutsy within all of us. And when we're willing to share the struggles that we have gone through, there is so much inspiration in lighting a light in someone else's life to say, wow, I can't believe that they went through that. I thought that I was the only one. Through these stories, people have shared things from all aspects and all walks of life. We talked to a filmmaker who spent a portion of his life living in his car with his son, yet they persevered together and have since gone on to create some pretty amazing movies, purchased a home, and have been able to inspire thousands of filmmakers to do the same. We talked to a fabulous motivational speaker who, at the age of 40, sat in her car with her kids, school-age children, and her son looked at her and said, "Mommy, why don't you smile anymore?" And it was that moment she had a breakthrough to go out on her own and create a successful, thriving motivational speaking business. We also talked to an owner of a magazine and a fellow creative studio, and she spilled her gutsy on how her mental health has taken a toll because of the demands and challenges that business throw at you on a regular basis. Yet she has found ways to overcome those obstacles and continues to push through. I mean, I could literally go on for hours through the stories that these amazing entrepreneurs have shared with me. And it's a testament to how vulnerability is so powerful, because through sharing their stories, and if you're interested in binge watching them, I highly recommend it. Go to youtube.com/The Green Couch Project. Grab some tissues and a pad of paper while you're at it, because it's just incredible information that's going to leave you feeling like you can literally take on the world. And that's really what vulnerability does, guys. Vulnerability lets other people know, hey, I'm a human and I'm going through this. And when you share it with other people, they come out of the space of, I'm alone, no one else feels like this, there's something wrong with me, and says, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. And this is a part of the phase, and it's okay for me to keep going. And one of the coolest parts when you start to open yourself up is people will start to pour their hearts out with you. They'll celebrate your successes higher with you. They will be on the front line waiting to help to support you when things are going rough. And my personal favorite, you will gain so much respect. Because when people know that you've gone through something very challenging, whether large or small, and you have pushed through it and come out on the other side to create something incredible out of it, people will be loyal to you beyond words. Because you've done something that maybe they're not yet ready to do. and can see a part of themselves in you, and you have instilled hope in them. And my friends, you cannot put a dollar amount on that. What happens when you contain those thoughts and feelings inside of you? You start to believe that you truly are alone and that there's something wrong with you, that you're failing, that everyone's going to lose interest in your business, that you're going to lose friends or respect from people. You really start to question a lot of things. But here's the deal. Everyone's got shit, guys. Like literally everyone has shit. I would throw down $100 bill and bet that Oprah and Ellen and any other person that you may look up to has times where they don't feel awesome, or they start to question themselves or go through something really shitty that makes them feel like they are less than what they are. I came across some graphics on Instagram and I thought that these were just amazing. I read that Jennifer Lopez has sold 70 million albums, but often doesn't feel like she's good at music. Or that Maya Angelou wrote 11 books, but constantly felt like a fraud, like she wasn't a real writer. And even when winning an Oscar, Jodie Foster felt like a fluke. She thought that everyone was going to find out and they were going to take it back. I mean, these are some of the most successful people in the world, and they too are having vulnerable moments. And why? Because they're freaking humans. And guess what, lovely? You're a human too. And I'd bet knowing these facts just from these 3 people alone, this doesn't count the probably millions of stories that are out there, you'll listen to Jennifer Lopez's music a little bit differently and maybe watch Jodie Foster's movies with a little bit more respect. And why? Just simply because you know one vulnerable fact that they go through. Here's an important aspect of vulnerability, though. Before we can tackle the real fear of opening up, we must first understand why we feel this way to begin with. By understanding the root of what causes the trigger that causes you to shut down is essential, because without understanding why you feel like this, you'll never overcome those feelings. So to ask you to be vulnerable with yourself first, I think that it's only fair that I open up and share something vulnerable with you. I used to hold in my feelings in fear that someone would say something negative about me, or worse yet, leave me. Because of some deep-rooted childhood events, crappy relationships, and some business clients or partnerships that have gone south, I've had a long-lasting fear that if I acted, talked, or behaved 100% as who I am, that everyone around me would just completely vanish. So it became easier just to be a yes woman and do what was quote-unquote right and make myself smaller and dim the light that I shine in order to make the people around me more comfortable. Now, some of this is self-inflicted because I've got some pretty incredible people around me that will high five in any scenario that we've got going on and celebrate me completely as who I am. But for whatever reason, I gave weight to the other people. So I spent a lot of time missing opportunities and feeling sorry for myself. So after a series of events and investing in myself and my own personal mental health, I had my own breakthrough moment where I decided that I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be 100% who I am because that's all that I am. And honestly, that's when I perform the best. That's when I can positively impact people the most. And that's when I'm just truly at my happiest. It was my vulnerability with myself first that gave me the strength and the courage to push through, heal and overcome, to be the person that has always lived inside me but has been too afraid to come out. At a first glance, we associate vulnerability with weakness and assume that everyone will either abandon or judge us. And let's face it, people like to talk, but guess what? They're going to talk anyway, so let them do whatever they want to do. Vulnerability can come in all shapes and forms. Sometimes it's talking about an experience that you've been through, or opening up about some feelings that you're having. Maybe you're going through something challenging, or you need to seek some help. Sometimes it's things like addiction or other habits, financial struggles, depression and anxiety, which is very common in the entrepreneurial world. Maybe you have failed at something and you feel ashamed, or you've been through something that you feel like no one can relate to. The crazy thing is, vulnerability is not always associated with perceived negative situations either. It can also be associated with some positive events and feelings like financial gain or wealth, not wanting to share that information and fear that people are going to look at you differently. Maybe you have a lot of confidence, but it's often mistaken as arrogance, so you make yourself a little bit smaller. Maybe you're going through a lifestyle change, or you've achieved some health goals and are afraid to open up to what led you to that in the first place. And one of the biggest areas that I see business owners really making themselves small in is when there is growth or success. You've worked really hard to get to those points. It's not like something just fell out of the sky and all of a sudden one day you had a boatload of cash and everything was perfect in the world. No, you've gone through obstacles and challenges and faced a lot of things to achieve the things that you have today. You have every right to celebrate your successes. And when you can turn your success story into, this is where I came from and this is what I'm doing now, you're going to inspire more people than we could even count. And that's what vulnerability is all about, guys. It's all about inspiring someone else to say, yeah, I can get through this. I can do this because if they can do it, I can do it. So here's the deal. I've got a vulnerable moment that I feel compelled to share with you. I literally just shared this with my team a few weeks ago because I think that it's important as a leader to be vulnerable because it creates transparency and trust. So as I mentioned earlier, over the years, I've had quite a bit of issue of stepping into my own light and fear that people were going to bail. And some of the results of this are I undercharged for a long time. I missed a ton of opportunities because I didn't take chances because I was afraid of what everyone else might think. I said yes to things that didn't align with where we were headed. And last year alone, I left about 150 grand on the table of missed opportunities because I couldn't get out of my own way. I let fear drive the car instead of just coming along for the ride. Now, I do believe in divine timing, and some of the opportunities and things that I may have pursued, I just wasn't ready for, so I did not go forward with them. And even in the midst of having some of these doubts and fears, I was still growing the business. I was still growing my team. We were still expanding our clientele base and still taking risks on a regular basis. Sometimes I can't help but wonder where we could have been, but I don't get too wrapped up in that because I truly, authentically feel like we are exactly where we're supposed to be right now. While it may not have shown right away, or maybe I just wasn't ready to see it, these things definitely have left an impact on me and my business. And one of those things is this brown folder that up until a couple of months ago haunted me every single day of my life. This brown folder is full of invoices, things and people that I owe money to. The folder has expanded and contrasted over the years. It's always kind of been the go-to spot that when an invoice comes in, it goes into the folder, which hasn't always equated to something negative. It's just a standard part of business. But over the years, I started to use the folder as a way to hide from myself. It's easier to not face the demons that are in front of you. It's easier to put them into something and tuck them behind you. Much like it's easy to not deal with email when you just don't open it, or to not have to organize that junk drawer that collects everything by just simply walking by it. This brown folder has become the equivalent of my junk drawer. And up until last year, I used it as a way to hide the beast that I have created. But like I mentioned earlier, I decided to take my power back by not only stepping into my own light, but dealing with the shit that had been coming along with me the entire time. So instead of hiding from the folder, I created an Excel spreadsheet. I put all of the numbers in there. I calculated and I looked at the total, and that was gut-wrenching for me, but I had to see it because prior to that moment, I had no idea what the total was. I created some fairly aggressive business goals this year, products and services, financial milestones, and how we're going to achieve these goals. I met with my accountant to find out where the open doors were, where the cracks were, where the money was slipping out, and how I could have a better handle on my finances. And I'm pleased to say that that folder no longer haunts me. Yes, it's still sitting here. Yes, it's still part of my journey. But the thing is, I'm not afraid of it anymore. Fear comes from the unknown. And by facing it dead on, getting a plan, and working towards it every week, I know that not only will that folder be taken care of this year, but it's going to get thrown away. I mean, I'm talking celebratory bonfire, and I promise you, I will tell you when that's going to happen because we'll just have one big party. When I first started saying this out loud, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, this is freaking me out. I shouldn't share this. This is a really big deal for me, and how are people going to think? And then I had to stop. I'm like, Laura, you're doing an entire podcast telling people that it's okay to be vulnerable. And I remember it's okay to share this because I'm going to guess that there's at least one of you, and that's a really low guess, that has your own equivalent of your brown folder. You have your own challenge that you're facing, your own obstacle that seems bigger than what you are. And if by sharing this, I leave you feeling a little bit more empowered, you're standing up a little bit taller, and it inspires you to get into the weeds and figure it out, then it's worth every word. Because remember, vulnerability is equivalent to inspiration. And if you can switch your mindset from thinking, oh, this is scary, I don't think I want to share this, to if I share this, I could help someone through something, your entire outlook on business will change on a daily basis. And because I'm feeling extra spunky tonight, if you hop over to my Instagram account at @LauraAura, I have shared a photo of this glorious folder because I feel like you need visual context here, okay? We even did like our own little micro photo shoot. She and I are friends again. I put her in the window. There was great lighting. It's fabulous. Now comes the part where we need to turn the tables and get back into you. You've heard me share a handful of different vulnerable stories. So what I want you to do this week is to start thinking about what are you holding back in fear that other people will form judgment or opinion about you. The best place to start is by being vulnerable with yourself. So grab your favorite cup of coffee and go to your favorite spot, curl up on the couch or tuck away in your bed somewhere, and write down the things that make you feel vulnerable. Things like telling your story, sharing something that you feel insecure about, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, in business. Maybe sharing an emotion that has been challenging you. What's an area in your business that you're struggling with? Or maybe what are some things that you're feeling overwhelmed by? These are just a few examples, but I just want to get the creative juices flowing in your head because vulnerability doesn't always have to be something huge. It can be something small, but in your mind and in your heart may feel huge. After you've made this list of vulnerability moments, I want you to break it into two different categories. One for business and one for personal. A lot of times they'll overlap, but a lot of times they're also going to be a little bit more dominant in one area or the other. And sometimes when you can adjust and overcome from one area, it will actually help to fix the other as well. And then, if and when you're ready, I want you to form small groups of people. Could even be one other person, honestly, a mentor, a trusted person that you can go to for each category, someone with business and someone with personal. And again, this could be the same person. Personally, I meet with a group of business owners, a small group of creative female business owners. We have met every month for the last, I think that we last calculated the last 6 or 7 years, which is a pretty substantial amount of time to continue this type of group. But we have formed such a bond and such a trust that I could literally go to them with any business problem that I'm having, tell them what's going on, and they're going to give me constructive criticism and feedback on how to overcome those things. They're also not afraid to get real with me. One of them told me to shit or get off the pot one time, and there's nothing that quite gets you moving, quite like a comment like that. But the point is, this is a safe place for me to be vulnerable. Not every obstacle, not every challenge needs to be shared with the world. But if you can form a small circle, even 1 or 2 people that you know are a phone call or an email away to say, hey, I'm having a moment, I need to talk through something, that they'll be there for you in a heartbeat and help you overcome the obstacles. And you can be that same person for them too. By starting to share your vulnerability moments a little bit at a time, you can start to overcome the things that feel like balls and chains. You'll start to discover that no, you're not alone, and no, you're not the only person that feels like this. And by switching your perspective from what will they think of me to what if this helps someone else, your feeling of empowerment will grow. And what feels like is holding you back now will become the very thing that sets you free. We're going to keep the feeling train moving this week on the Power Back. On Thursday, we're talking about how what you think is what you feel, and what you feel is what you do. Until then, don't forget to skip over to Instagram and follow me at @LauraAura. You want to check out that picture of that beautiful brown folder. And you can follow the Gutsy Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. I'll talk to you soon.